We all think that there is a certain risk profile attached to our personality. We like to box ourselves into I'm risk loving or I'm risk averse and so on and so forth. But what if I told you that scientists have proven, in fact, the most famous behavioral economics experiment proved that people's risk profile changes basis the condition or the context against which they're measuring it. So let me give you an example. If you had two choices to make, choice one is you get sure shot 500 rupees, and choice two is that you spin a wheel and there's a 50% chance you will get 1,000 and a 50% chance that you will get nothing. Which of these two choices will you pick? If you fall into the majority, then most likely you will pick the sure shot option where you will get a guaranteed 500 bucks, while the factual statistical answer is that the two choices are exactly the same. If you have an average of getting a sure shot 500, that equals the 50-50 chance of getting either a 0 or 1,000. So you would like to believe that in this case you were risk averse. When you had something to gain, you wanted to be very confident, very certain of what is it that you gained, and you didn't want to gamble. But let me now change the equation. And now you have two more choices. Choice one is that you guaranteed lose 500, or you spin a wheel on which there's a 50% chance you lose nothing and a 50% chance that you use 1,000. Now which one would you choose? And not surprisingly, people shift. They are now willing to gamble. They are now willing to spin the wheel, as was proven by the experiment, and it proves that when we are faced with a loss, we suddenly become favorable to gambling. We're happy to play odds than take a certain loss in our hands, even when the probabilities of both are equal. Now, this experiment manifests itself into so many things that we do on a daily basis, and let me start that with a very simple example. If you are a salaried person and you want to become an entrepreneur, the lure and the certainty of a monthly salary is the success and is the probability that you won't want to trade against, because the 50% chance that you might win and make a lot more money than you ever will in that monthly salary is not as exciting. It seems like a gamble. It's not your natural self. And then only people who are truly risk friendly or risk loving would want to take those bets. Majority of the people will be like, you know what, give me my monthly salary and that works for me. But if you're now an entrepreneur and you're running your startup and it's not going too well, and someone's suggesting that why don't you shut it down, you're faced with certain loss that you can incur if you were to shut it down. But there is, of course, always this probability that if you continued, you might still make it work. Almost every entrepreneur will choose the latter. They will want to gamble. They will want to say, you know what, I can't take a certain loss and let me spin the wheel and have odds of hopefully winning, even if it's the same probability. And now the question of whether you're risk averse or risk loving doesn't exist anymore. It's actually your perspective towards that situation. Do you see that situation as a gain situation or a loss situation, and that suddenly changes your behavior from what you thought was a risk loving or a risk averse personality to the exact opposite? And this experiment and this concept in behavioral economics is just such a fascinating insight into how, as humans, we are just very, very, very shallow in how we think of our decision making and our ability to be really consistent with how we make our decisions. This is Warikoo Wednesdays, Season 2, Episode 9, and until next week, see you all.